And happy Wednesday, everyone. My name is meteorologist Heather Kane. It's time for our daily hail forecast, sponsored as always by See-Through Group, Merlin Law Group, American Contractor Show, as well as Atlas Roofing. Thank you guys for sponsoring our videos. So let's get right into our weather headlines. We do have a few areas that we'll be watching for the possibility for severe weather today, including the southeast as well as parts of Texas. Will the DFW area be in that risk? We'll check that out in just a few minutes. And then as we get into tomorrow, in terms of severe weather, we should be relatively quiet, although we'll still have some lingering storms in parts of central and southern Florida. And then as we jump into the next few days and into the beginning of the next week, when will that next main system move on in? We'll talk about that as well. So here are our reports from yesterday. We did have some activity as expected in the southeast. However, we did have some hail along with those gusty winds, as well as some winds in Illinois. So we're going to jump into the southeast again. You can see those scattered hail and wind reports in southern Georgia, into the panhandle of Florida, as well into parts of South Carolina. So here are current conditions across the lower 48. You can see where that front is situated right now. It's in parts of central Pennsylvania all the way down into southeastern Georgia and Florida. And then we have another disturbance that we'll be watching here in the southern part of the country. So we're going to zoom on in here first. You know, we're pretty clear right now across Dallas down to Killeen. It's a mess here in central Oklahoma. We even got some snow here this morning. Nothing sticking. Thankfully, it's too warm for that, but it's definitely unpleasant seeing that white stuff this late in the season. And then here in the southeast, we are experiencing some showers and storms across parts of northern Florida, and a few showers going on right now as far north getting into the Carolinas. So zooming on out, taking a look at our temperatures. It's pretty cold out there. It's only in the upper 30s here in Oklahoma City. Kansas City, you're only at 37. You get down south, though, of that main system, it's 58 in Dallas and 63 in Houston. More 60s and even as warm as 80 degrees down in Miami ahead of that storm system. And yeah, just cold for the most part in the U.S. And along with that cold air, it's also very dry. Those dew points are only from the mid-teens to the 20s. It's really not much better, but a 36-degree dew point in Dallas. That moisture, again, is situated in the southeast. And, you know, again, it's cold, and I told you yesterday those colder temperatures are going to push east with that cold front, and they are doing so, and we're anywhere from 10 to 20 degrees below average of where we should be sitting for temperatures this time of the year. So here are our dew points across the country. Again, it's very dry. The exceptions are here in the southeast where you see those deeper greens. That's where that moisture is situated. So that moisture will help with those storms to develop later on this afternoon and into the evening hours. And then we do have a little bit of moisture trying to creep up here in parts of central Texas with a disturbance there. And as we go through this afternoon and evening, you can see those greens trying to creep up here into central Texas. More moisture just sticking around here in the southeastern parts of the country, and that will again help with those storms to continue on through the evening and even into the overnight hours. So that's one thing that we need. The other thing that we need is that instability. So we do have some CAPE, which is that energy that the storms need, the fuel to fire up and continue to, stay alive and not just go up and collapse. So we do have some values here, basically from South Carolina all the way down to Florida. And then again, we do have some values starting to show up here in parts of Texas as we go through this afternoon. This is sitting at 5 p.m. Central. So you can see some values trying to basically creep up here near the Dallas-Fort Worth area as we go through this afternoon and evening. And then, of course, again, along the southeastern part of the country. And then as we go into later on this evening, you can see we lose that heating of the day. We lose that instability. So any storms that do develop here in central Texas they're not going to be long lasting. They're just going to go up. And then as we lose that heating and we lose that instability, those storms should die out. But you can see here along the southeastern parts of the country, that instability is going to last through the late night hours and into the overnight hours as well and into tomorrow morning. So let's take a look at some radars. This is one particular model, one particular run of that model. So this is sitting at 3 p.m. Central Time. You can see a few storms trying to fire up north of Austin. As we go further on into time, you can see a few isolated storms trying to fire up here. So again, it should be a pretty isolated storm coverage event. And we could see some hail if any storms could get going across this region. And you can see as we go later on into the evening, they just start to fizzle out. So it'll only be a few hours of a window that we'll be watching anywhere from Dallas down to the Austin area for the potential for any storm development. But then across the southeast, we do have more instability and more heat and more moisture, so there's a better chance for some severe weather out there. So basically from South Carolina all the way down to parts of Florida. So this is at 12:30 Central, so 1:30 Eastern time for you guys. Some storms are expected to fire up within the next few hours, and as we go through this afternoon, we get more heating and more instability. You can see that coverage starts to increase here. Some isolate, or you can see some storms by themselves, and not in a linear mode here in parts of South Carolina. So we could see some hail. I'm not expecting anything too large, but hail is possible from South Carolina all the way down to Florida. We get to about 11 p.m. Eastern time. You can see storms will still be ongoing, and even more storms trying to fire up here as we go into the middle of the night. So 3 p.m. Eastern time here, we can possibly still see some storms moving through Jacksonville and all the way up into the Carolinas, and that will continue through daybreak tomorrow morning. So here is today's forecast. Again, nothing too crazy in terms of size, but we're going to zoom on in here to our Texas risk. Again, Fort Worth all the way down to Killeen, all the way down to Austin. $1.25 to $1/2 size hail is possible for any storms that do develop. So again, it should be a pretty isolated short-term thing if, again, any storms could fire up there. And then still a low but a better chance compared to Texas to see hail anywhere from $1.25 to $1/2 size from Jacksonville up to Savannah, Georgia, all the way up to Columbia, South Carolina. And then this risk will continue through this afternoon and evening, even into the overnight hours as that front takes its jolly old time pushing its way off the coast. And then for the wind, basically the two same areas. We have the first one in Texas from Fort Worth all the way down to Austin, where 60-mile-per-hour gusts are possible for those isolated storms that do try to develop. And then again along the southeast from Columbia all the way down to Jacksonville, maybe as far south as near Tampa. I think most of it should stay north of Tampa. So Jacksonville all the way up to Columbia, 60-mile-per-hour gusts are possible there. Then getting into tomorrow, I'm not really expecting anything in terms of severe weather, but starting out our morning tomorrow in Florida, some lingering storms are possible from Tampa down south as that front pushes off the coast finally. This is at 1 p.m. Eastern time. Tomorrow you can see a few lingering showers here, but then we should clear out as we go through the rest of the afternoon tomorrow and into the evening as that system finally pushes off the coast completely. So if we do see some storms tomorrow, they shouldn't be severe, and they should be basically within the first half of the day, and then the second half should be dry here for our folks down in Florida. But after that, we should be relatively quiet for our Friday and for our weekend. But is there something to watch for next week? Let's take a look at our jet stream. So here we go. We have a trough here in the middle of the country, bringing all that cold air south, and the low pressure system at the surface is here in the southeast, and that's where we'll be watching for that severe weather here. And then even a little disturbance here, a little wiggle in the flow here in Oklahoma and Texas, and that will be the producer of any storms that may fire this afternoon and evening. Then as we get into tomorrow, that system finally starts to push off the coast. We should be dry here in Florida. Ridging takes over in the middle of the country, so more heat will start to return to the U.S. But then you can see that next trough trying to push its way on in from the Pacific. So this is at Friday at 4:30 Central Time. You can see it's still just sticking around there. It's going to take a few days for it to push on in, so I'm not really expecting anything in terms of severe weather for basically tomorrow through our weekend. So Easter, we're not expecting anything too crazy in terms of severe weather. But then as we get into Sunday, it finally starts to dig on in, and Monday we may have to watch for parts of the central and southern plains for severe weather as this trough finally moves into the region. So stay tuned into the next few days to see some updates on that system and see if anything develops out of that. But then in terms of our temperatures, again, it's cold, but the good news is that over the next few days, we're going to start warming up once again. So getting into tomorrow, 60s will be returning here to Oklahoma. 62 is what's expected around 6 p.m. Central Time tomorrow. Still cold in the north, though. It's typical to still be a bit chilly in the north, I know, because I grew up in Michigan. But getting into Friday, more warm air here. And then same deal as we get into Saturday, getting up into the 70s and even some 80s down in Texas. And then for Easter, yeah, it's going to be nice. It's going to be a little bit warm, still a bit chilly in the north. And then as we get into Monday, you can see a front may try to set up here with that next big system. So it'll still be warm on Monday, but we may have to watch for the potential of severe weather on Monday. It's still a few days out, so we will fine-tune it as we get closer. In terms of our precipitation, again, as we get into tomorrow, that system is finally going to move off the coast. And then, nothing in terms of severe weather, just a few areas of snow for our Friday. But then you can see that system off the coast of California slowly starting to make its way into the U.S., bringing some precipitation in the Rockies out into the west. So it may be a bit messy for your Easter, unfortunately. Then as we get into Monday, stopping it at 7 p.m., you can see this will be the area that we may have to watch as we get into the beginning of next week. And then heavier rain also possible in parts of the east. So the next system still a few days out, but definitely something to keep an eye on as we get closer. But that's all I have for you today. Make sure you follow us on X or Twitter, whatever the heck you want to call it, Facebook, Instagram, as well as our YouTube and TikTok page. Make sure you click See First on select the notifications for See First on Facebook so you don't miss any of our videos. And if you want to set up with any of our demos, you can scan that QR code above to get set up with that. And if you have any other questions or concerns, you can always call us at 334-4245. You can email us at info@hailtrace.com and check out our website at www.hailtrace.com. And I am meteorologist Heather Kay. I hope you all have a great rest of your Wednesday.